Hello and welcome to episode 15. And yes, it's the first episode where I've realised that although I've had a very expensive microphone, I haven't had it connected. So if you think my voice is like super ASMR-ish right now, it's because all of a sudden I have a mic that works. Sounds clear, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just unbelievable that it's sat there for 40 plus episodes.
I mean, what an idiot. What an idiot, dude.
Well, people don't complain about the sound quality.
Dude, we got a guest on today. Without further ado, we need to introduce our guest. He is the one and only Jacob Gibbons. I've been wanting to have Jacob on for ages. I've been pestering him. Tell you what, he's a busy man. Thanks for coming along.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time, mate. Appreciate you. It's really good. Finally nice to connect with you properly as well. We don't know each other, which is always great.
Yeah, no.
It's always good to do
I'm sure we'll bump into each other at some kind of race or event at some point. It's a miracle we haven't so far. Unfortunately, I see quite a lot of Ollie, but what can you do?
We have just spent a week together, and I tell you what, if I spend a week with Jacob, by the end of the week, we're going quite hard at each other. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's not many other people could be in the room and not get... No.
It's funny, dude. We were talking about it, weren't we? It's like we don't really say anything nice to each other by the end of the week, you know?
No,
and that's how I like it.
Every now and again we squeeze in a hug, and then it's all good.
It's all good. You know it's all good. But that's my favourite shit, actually. People that I can just be horrible to and they're horrible back to me. Like, it's a horrible feeling when you're horrible to someone and they're not horrible back. I think that's tough.
Yeah, when it lands.
That's bullying. That's bullying, isn't it? Usually.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but if it's mutual, does it make it better if it's like mutual bullying? Because I'm not a fan of bullies. But then when it's like meanness that's
reciprocated.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
It's okay, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, I understand. I seen the sort of dirt sandwich that you gave Jacob the other day as well.
Yeah.
I seen him covered in, you facialed him.
Yeah, there's no one I'd rather dirt sandwich. That doesn't sound that good, but
yeah,
sounds better than dirt facial. I feel like.
Oh, dude, we had a good week. We had a cracking week in the valleys, and now we're here, and I'm glad that we got Jacob on. Do you know why I thought it'd be a great idea to get Jacob on? It's because, for me, from the outside, Jacob, you live the life. And I think a lot of our listeners probably are like looking to get into some of the things that, like from my perspective, you travel around the world riding your bike, taking pictures and video. Is that correct?
Pretty much, yeah. Fairly fortunate, I think.
And you've made a career of it.
Yeah, no, pays the mortgage.
Life
That's nice.
is good.
It's always
right?
a bonus. That is a bonus. But I agree with you, Ollie. I think this subject's super interesting, dude, and I'm looking forward to learning more about Jacob personally. And I know our listeners are going to be listening to this and they'll be frothing to find out more, because there are a lot of unknowns when it comes to finding out how someone got into the bike industry and how they sustain it and stuff like that. And also I agree that a lot of the time it can look really good from the outside looking in, and hopefully, Jacob, it is really good from the inside. But like, there's probably going to be some stuff to talk about as well about it not being so great sometimes.
Yeah,
would you agree?
No, definitely. It's like any job, you know. There's good days and bad days, and times when it feels like work, and times when it definitely does not feel like work. I'm fairly fortunate that I think the lion's share of my time, it definitely doesn't feel like work. So.
I think it's easy as well for someone who doesn't know what work goes in to kind of just come straight in and just be like, wow, this guy's got the dream job. And that maybe you would think, oh, that hasn't come without hardship. But I remember the early days of Jacob Gibbons.
You with me, yeah. You've been...
No mortgages being paid then, dog. There were no mortgages being paid then.
No, that was living in my parents' basement somewhere way down in Devon, miles from pretty much any riding scene. So, well, Tabby had a really good riding scene, but to get to any other riding scene was miles.
Can we give like a brief history then, a brief overview of, first up, I feel like we should do Jacob, basically how did you get into the mountain bike scene, and then let's go through and figure out like when you guys first met, started working together and stuff. Is that cool?
Yeah, definitely. Any time to reminisce on those times.
Hey, Jacob, talk about yourself, dude.
Well,
did I make that weird on purpose? I did.
That's your special skill. What do you want to know? Where do we start?
Right. So you got into mountain biking because of the scene in Tavy, would you say?
Yeah. So I grew up way down split between Lancashire, and then when I was 10, moved down to Devon, Tavistock, and shortly after moving there, got into mountain biking properly when I was like 12, 13, something like that. And Tavistock had a really good riding scene. There's loads of good riding down there. Loads of big, deep river valleys and the moors and good natural landscape.
When did you first discover mountain biking? Like, what's like your earliest memory of going, that looks cool?
Going into the supermarket in Oakhampton, which is like the neighbouring town, and seeing an issue of MBUK on the shelves. And rather than going and being dragged around the supermarket with mum, I thought I'll just chill by the magazine articles and read some stuff, and picked up a copy of MBUK and was hooked. Looked through it, was like, Mum, we're getting a bike. And it was an absolute bag of shit. But I think if you learn on an absolute bag of shit, you're a slightly better rider by the end of it.
Yes, it's the key, isn't it? It's the key, no doubt.
I wonder how many teenage boys didn't even know there was magazine racks underneath the top shelf.
Hold on.
I feel like when I just thought all magazines were 6 foot high.
All the good ones, all the ones worth reading, eh?
Yeah.
No, it was. I can't remember, but it was from 2001 or 2, and had Steve Gill on the cover doing a massive table or something.
Nice.
Back when MBUK used to have like silverfish adverts with girls in bikinis and stuff, in just so un-PC these days.
Were you about to say the good old days?
No,
or not? You weren't about to. No, you weren't.
That's you.
You
Ollie.
were disgusted in those times, weren't you? You were like,
even back then, as a 12-year-old, I was disgusted.
You can believe it.
Oh dear, that's funny. So your first memory is basically seeing MBUK, which is really cool because I think a lot of people probably who listen to this might have had a similar experience by discovering it in a magazine shop or something like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then just getting more and more into it, your mates get into it, you go riding in the park, the local wood, the skate park, and it just kind of begins to slowly take over your life, doesn't it?
So what point did you pick up a camera, though? Was there like a point?
Shortly, about the same time, just because my dad had in fact, I have it on the shelf.
Look at that, he's come prepared.
No,
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was expecting something a little bit better than that. That is... no offence, dude, but...
Look at it!
I mean, is it a Tamagotchi? I mean, is that even a camera?
Yeah, dude, it's got 2 megapixels. 2 megapixels. It's insane.
Wow.
Anyway, that was my dad's little point and shoot. I used to just steal off him every time I went to the woods and going, you're just documenting, how high you're jumping and what your mates are doing and all the rest of it. And I always just ended up getting lumped with the camera more often. And I guess that meant that I got more practice with the camera. And I really enjoyed taking photos as well. I'm a massive nerd, and so I think photography is kind of part creative and part nerdy. So,
yeah, you were photography first, weren't you? You were still image first, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, at the very beginning, it was video, photos, whatever. We were just playing around, filming each other, crash into trees or whatever. And then when it started getting to be more of a hobby in its own right, as well as the cycling, I went down the still photography route because Aaron Bartlett Mono from Creative Concept, who made like all the foot out, flat out films and all that kind of stuff, we grew up together and rode together. So he kind of took the video route and I took the stills route, and together we just always had cameras and documented our local scene down in Devon.
I think that's cool. I think it's cool that, like you say, it's actually a hobby of yours, because me and Jacob see each other a lot when we're doing like work in inverted commas. But when you come riding, you still ride with a backpack with a camera on because you enjoy it. I think that's really cool that you enjoy it outside of work.
Yeah, like I went for a walk around a big park nearby yesterday with my mum and the missus, and took the camera and just taking pictures of crazy autumn leaves and stuff. So yeah, no, I super enjoy taking photos. You've got to keep it fun and still enjoy it. Otherwise, like I said earlier, it could just become work.
Just quickly as well, you said as well, Jacob, which I think is pretty interesting, that you'd sort of discovered MBUK first. Did you discover the scene at the same time, or did you then okay, so you find mountain biking, but then how do you find other people that are into it? Did your mates get into it at the same time?
Well, yeah, good question. I guess I had no idea that there was a scene. I maybe thought that there must have been one because there was magazines to do with it, but locally, I just found out through people down at the local park or skate park or whatever that supposedly there's these woods just outside Tavistock that are good for mountain biking. So then you spend your Saturday riding all the way out there with 3 of your mates and spending your whole day in the woods and then riding all the way back. And while you're out there all day, you start meeting more and more riders and all the rest of it. So that just naturally, over the course of years spent in the woods, you just meet everyone, not from just Tavistock, but the riding scene down there was so good that people from all over the country and the world dropped by whenever they were near. And so slowly met more and more people, and that was the excuse to slowly start branching out and travelling.
It's interesting to think about when you first discover stuff, because I was just trying to do it then, and I'm like, wonder when I first discovered it. I know with anything two-wheeled, for me, it's always been there, but I'm trying to think of a hobby that I found that necessarily I didn't grow up with, if that makes sense. Because like I say, our family's always been, my uncle rode motocross and speedway. My dad's always been into it, so I've never had that discovering
moment.
Yeah, where I'm just trying to think. I know, I played a little bit of ice hockey and stuff when I was a little bit younger, and I think that was discovered through a Nintendo game. I was like, I'll just grab that game, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually, I'd like to try this, and then I started playing hockey. But it's interesting to think back about when you'd first find something and just go like, I didn't even know this sport even existed.
Yeah.
It's weird to think.
No, I mean, my dad's super outdoorsy, or was when he was younger, and was into walking and being out in the mountains. So I was always brought up around the outdoors, and so that side of it was quite natural and appealing. But the actual cycling, no one in my immediate family cycled really or mountain biked, so it was, I guess, down to me.
I think it's kind of built in. Without a magazine, well, for me anyway, without a magazine, you still get on a bike and want to skid or jump or wheelie without ever even seeing someone, or maybe you know what I mean. It's not like I had to see that there was this thing. Like we built jumps, we didn't have a clue that anyone else built jumps. I love the thought of that we were that. We thought we were we didn't even think anything. We thought exactly nothing. We were like, I want to jump, so I'm going to build a jump. It wasn't like it was a thing.
Yeah. No, but I guess there's some people who, as a really young child, just running around and playing, like to climb trees and jump out of them and end up breaking their wrists and stuff. I was definitely one of them. And then there's others that just want to chill and read and whatever, play computer games, or there's just some people are more drawn to doing more adventurous outdoorsy stuff. I guess all three of us are those kind of people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you're quite right.
Yeah.
Have you? So when I first met you was when you were filming one of your early videos, right?
You are. Well, yeah, probably the locals, or maybe even whatever preceded that. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that. What were your what are your if there was an IMDb, a mountain bike IMDb or whatever it is, what were all of your movies? Because I think that's really cool, and I think that's for people getting into it. I always think there's people get into it, they want to get paid straight away or do work for people straight away. And I think it was so cool back then. It was like punk and it was self-initiated, and I had no idea who you were, but you wanted to make a edit, like a video, and you were kind enough to ask me. So I thought that was cool alone, kind of.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's a good question, dude. Like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Way back, I was just looking for it down here. Somewhere on one of these old DVDs is the very first ever video I made on that piece of shit little camera up there, and it's just...
Oh, it was on that one. Yeah.
Oh, it's complete potato cam, but it's just like literally 15-year-old kids. I think Ash Mullane, who used to be kind of NPS, national downhill kind of racer, elite, sponsored by Cove and stuff. He grew up down in Devon, so he was kind of the local resident pro, and so I think he's in it, but then Mono and loads of just other pals of mine. And then that was made just for fun. And then I slowly started wanting to go and film with better and better riders until I'm messaging people like Ollie, who back then was riding for DMR, literally head to toe, and just said, can I come and hang out for a few days and we'll just film some bikes, and I'm making a little video. And I think the first one was completely for the love of it. There was no money, no sponsors or anything. It's just me wanting to go and film some biking and getting out there and doing it.
And how long ago are we talking from that one? Like you said, 01 is when you roughly started.
Was that Locals 1?
Yeah. Honestly, 2005, 6, something like that, 7. It'll have been around then. It's still on YouTube somewhere. I didn't upload it, but someone obviously pulled it off Pink Bike or Empora or whatever it would have been back then and has uploaded it to YouTube.
That's a cool idea, actually. We'll have to get all of the any of the old stuff's links and put them in the description of our YouTube. And that'd be cool.
The quality of them is abysmal, and I had no idea what I was doing with a camera or editing. But the music back then obviously is all totally unlicensed, so it's all great. And then all the riding is just like a time capsule. There's loads of people.
Dude, you know what? It's a shame actually when you say that, because you're someone who's also super into music. Like how fun it was, because I don't know how you used to do it, but I used to think I would listen to music, and I still do to a certain extent. I listen to music and imagine it as a video part, and like that was possible back then. Like now, I guess on a bigger project that you might do, but
back then it was I'd almost planned the soundtrack to each section before I had started filming any of it. I'd be like, these are all the songs I want to use, and then you just go and film, almost pick like, okay, there's this rowdy metal track or Linkin Park or fuck knows what it would have been back then, and then you'd have to go and pick a rider who would do that song justice.
Yeah, because I remember you'd turn up at my house with like a selection, and you'd like play or like an exact song, and you'd play it saying this is what I was thinking for this section or whatever. I think that's rad, isn't it? Like it's not really like everything sounds kind of the same off the same free website now. A little bit, I feel. I think
you're right. It does. But I've spent half my day already today lost in those websites. But
really,
I still favourite songs on Spotify and make a playlist of stuff. And it's like every now and again a project will come along with decent enough budget that you might be able to license actual music. And even if it doesn't, you can listen through that and then try and find something that sounds as similar as possible on a rights-free thing. So I'm always listening and finding and favouriting.
It's a shame in a way, isn't it? Because like, I'm sure all of this free music's good and stuff, but like that was so much it when I was young. Like Sprung Video Magazine, like
dude,
and Earth and stuff. It almost like imagine having a section riding trails with ODB. There we go. That's a good question. Who are your influences as a filmmaker, not as a rider, growing up?
Growing up, it was exactly that. It was basically Rankin. Who else was there?
Yeah,
he was the man behind all Sprung, Earth, everything. Mono, who I grew up with, made some amazing early DVDs.
Didn't he? What were his ones called?
All Foot Out, Flat Out.
Flat Out, yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So yeah,
and he was obviously with Just a Gamble with Bowman,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I remember them sending the Spotify playlist to like some of our friends and being like, "Oh, listen through this and let us know which ones you sort of like." And I think they hit the jackpot with a few of those. I think like getting Arctic Monkeys was massive.
yeah, huge.
Yeah, it was PT's section, wasn't it?
yeah.
Was it PT's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
it's Peter's section. Yeah,
yeah. No, and then
It annoys me. You remember that? It fucking annoys me because that's gone now. Now you could have a killer section. You'd be like, you don't have that. Like,
I feel like some of them really do stick though, dude. And it's the same with Death Grip and yours with Eric B and Rakim. It just when those things come together perfectly, they really do.
Yeah.
Like it's like a moment in time of like fuck, like that really works.
but dude, do you know how hyped I'd be? Me and Jacob have just been filming a Goodyear ad. Do you know how hyped I'd be if I got even remote, like the tiniest bit of input on what music, like an actual music, not as in free music. It'd make me so much more hyped.
yeah,
And like
Really,
excited about it all. And like, I guess it's a little bit polarizing with like a lot of this music that on the free sites is almost kind of quite vanilla, isn't it? It's quite like non-offensive. I feel like it's like background music, lift music or something.
yeah. But then with music, you can't. Everybody has such different tastes with music. You're always going to alienate some of the audience.
Yeah.
If you make something that everybody likes, you've probably just played it way too safe. But
Yeah.
back in the day, one of my favourite films was New World Disorder 5, the one where they're all in orange prison jumpsuits and stuff. The soundtrack to that video is still insane. So many, it's just wall-to-wall bangers.
Is there a track that you've tried to get for something that you haven't managed to land because it's been obscenely too expensive, or
Not really.
or
No,
they've just not got back to you or anything like that? Because it's an interesting world, that, isn't it? Trying to land.
Yeah, working
tracks
with
and
music
stuff.
licensing companies and agents and record labels and stuff now, it's kind of, you can send them a message and try and make it work, but we don't like start editing to it till we've at least got a ballpark figure that we know is going to be achievable. Otherwise, you just edit a video and have to pull it out. And back in the day, you didn't give a shit and you just used whatever anyway. So no, not really. It's either been use something you're not allowed and it's been fine, or these days it's either play it safe or you have to do the due diligence and make sure that it's all above board before you can really get told it's not.
The early days of the podcast, I used to play anything at the start. I'd just be like, "Oh, I'm just going to play some Guns N' Roses this week," and just like start off with Guns N' Roses. And then when the podcast got a little bit, I'd say, bigger, I guess, it started getting copyright strikes quite a lot, and I was like,
so did it get that on the podcast app? Then we can't play any old music.
No, it would be when it was going onto YouTube. It would obviously get copyright stricken. But then recently, Facebook started doing podcasts. I don't know if you've seen that, but
have they?
on the Facebook app. So they take the data and they
make sure you like and subscribe to the right companion. That's right.
Well, you can listen on Facebook now apparently. Nice. But it obviously took the whole stream, like the whole feed, uploaded it, and then all of those were just like, all the early ones were just like copyright strike. And I'd sort of forgot that I used to do it. I just used to be like, I used to put it out on Instagram and be like, what do people want? And they'd be like, Guns N' Roses, and I'm like, yeah, cool. Just drop it.
I think there's like a certain amount of something that you can play without getting in trouble, but it's like 10 seconds or something minute.
I think it is 10 or 15 seconds or something. It's not.
Yeah. So there you go.
The first bit of a riff. That's funny.
So that took us through locals 1, 2. Like what? How many locals did you do? 9. No. The last 7 were available only in Asda, weren't they?
Yeah, Asda price. They were. I think we did 2 of those, and then we did something called Antidote, which was the first thing that Sega and I worked together on properly, and that was where we were starting to do stuff that was a bit more polished and a bit more professional. That was definitely sponsors involved and that kind of thing. Like we went to Spain and the Alps and whatnot, shooting sections and whatnot, which was really cool. And then from then,
so that's how you started your current business now with your partner Chris Seeger, right?
Yeah.
Aspect Media.
Current thing is Aspect Media production company. Chris Seeger and me, although on various jobs, there's a whole kind of umbrella of creatives that we work with, from graphics and music and drone and you name it. We still do solo work separately, but any job of any kind of size, we team up and work on them together. And yeah, the first was probably about 2012, shooting nationals and World Cups, because we were both doing team videos for various people and stuff for Vital or Southern Downhill or whatever it was back then. And it just started to get to the point where at about the same time, both of us were taking on projects that were a bit too much to do on your own. And quite often they needed a filmer and a photographer. And so joining forces and combining our skill sets just made sense.
Yeah, sick. So just before you started Aspect Media, you were doing full World Cup seasons, or were you just doing like national seasons? What were you doing race-wise coverage?
Well, I mean, it naturally kind of progressed from originally racing regional stuff in the UK myself to then I never entered a national, I don't think. I just entered and raced regionals and dragons and that kind of thing, and then started going to nationals with a camera, and then it was working with teams that were racing the nationals that then started racing World Cups, and then I did 4 or 5 seasons on the World Cup circuit, and then went and switched to doing enduro, which I have done, I think, up until the start of 2021, I'd only missed 3 EWSs ever, so I've basically done the whole series.
Really cool.
You've documented the not only the whole series, but the whole sport, really, Because enduro is...
I don't know, enduro is a fair bit older than the EWS, if you...
I mean, it's mountain biking, eh?
Well, yeah, essentially it was just all mountain bike races, kind of almost like Trans-Provence and stuff before then.
Yeah, but I guess they were those trans races, yeah.
But no, for as long as the EWS has existed, I've kind of been documenting them and at them. It's cool. So,
hey, do you know what I actually had again, to someone listening and getting into it, it sort of seems as though it's just the dream, like you're sort of kind of e-biking around, getting to ride some of the best tracks and stopping off, taking a few shots as Richie comes through or as Jack comes through, blah, blah, blah. I had a taste of it, right, at Trans Madeira, where I nailed myself before going to Trans Madeira. And I couldn't ride the first 2 days 2 days, I think I couldn't ride. I was not in a good way. I'd hit my head, blah, blah. So Jacob said, why don't you just jump in with us? So I jumped in with your van, and this to me was like the first time I realised what work goes into it.
The media
dude,
van.
it's like being fucking paparazzi. It's insane. You're bombing around all these tight roads. You pull up somewhere, and Jacob's like burst out the side of the van, sprinting up the hill. You got to get the top 5 guys coming through. You get the top 5 guys coming through a section. It's pre-planned. It's not like, it's not like fiddling around in the woods, like, maybe this angle would be good. It's not like that at all. It's like, we need to get the top 10,
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get the shots, you're fucking straight back in the van, bombing up the fire road. Maybe you'll do an interview on the way up, over to the next stage. Like it actually blew me away, dude. And anytime you have to ride down the track, so Jacob's got a bike that he has to ride down. He's got like a bag with so much weight in it.
I'm a Ninja Turtle.
These dudes are nothing. What? So, yeah, I mean, it always looks like such a laugh, but I imagine it's quite gnarly.
An EWS, it's honestly what you've just described, but even more mental. They're such a logistical nightmare to cover, even with like 2 or 3 cameramen. So, yeah, and you're bombing around.
And how many is there normally? Because obviously, again, a good friend of mine, Duncan's been doing loads of them over the last few years.
Mr. Duncan Philpott, big up.
Yeah, and how many is there normally? So I know Boris does a bunch, Duncan does a bunch.
Yeah,
big up Boris.
So is there normally 3 or 4, and you split it, and you all go in different areas, or are you all traveling together?
Sven will listen to this.
Well,
oh yeah, Sven.
Yeah,
Sven.
Hi, Sven. Sorry, we must mention him.
Should we just take a moment to...
We call him MTV Batman because he just seems to be on everything, and he'll call you out on anything. He's both wonderful and awful.
I haven't got shit off him for ages, actually. I'm worried. He must not have Wi-Fi or something.
Or you just
stopped listening to us talk shit.
Yeah. No, well, at the EWS, there's 10, 15 different kind of core media people that are at every race every year, like Boris and Sven and Duncan up until the start of this year, and all the EWS staff, myself included, and they're all working for different media outlets and teams and stuff. So some of them kind of pool their photos and shoot for each other so that they can cover more ground, and others don't. And if you're video, obviously you're going to be no use to for the photographers and vice versa. So yeah, there's a whole load of kind of unseen depth to what is going on to cover those things.
Actually, it's probably a good opportunity to mention Nico Turner, because as far as the EWS is concerned, you pump and dump, don't you? You get that footage and you get it over. Is that right?
Yeah.
How does it work?
So there's on the Goodyear advert that we were shooting last week. That's quality, not quantity. You're spending, a lot of time getting one shot. If it takes you riding and pushing up 5 times to get the focus or the riding perfect, that's all part of it. It's lighting stuff. It's fanning around with movies and all the rest of it. Whereas at the EWS, it's more about turnaround time and just getting event coverage that just shows the riding off as quickly as possible. So you're shooting kind of 4K, definitely not. You're shooting 1080. It's lower quality, and it's all just to speed up the process of getting it out the door, which Nico Turner, who's another kind of UK-based filmmaker editor, he has been the staff editor, head chief editor and cameraman, kind of on the side, more editing than filming, that pulls all of those highlights together in record time. And he is...
It is insane, isn't it?
He's an absolute wizard.
And how do you get that stuff to him that fast? Like, how do you do it? Is it all just going to a drive, or how does that work?
I mean, the boring nitty-gritty logistics of it are that there will probably be a runner whose job is to ride up into the forest, meet me at a point where I'm liaising between different stages, like at a fire road junction or something. I then give them the cards from those previous stages. They then have to go back down into the pits and to the press room, give them to Nico, who will card dump, ingest, tag, import. And then by the time he's done all that, the other guy's now ridden up and met me after the next stage, and then I'm giving him more cards. So it's
wow,
logistical nightmare, as you can imagine, but it's a well-oiled machine after doing it for so long.
Hey, I spoke to Thomas Lappery about his sort of EWS career, and he was saying he was riding for a team. He lost the love for racing because he was riding for a team, and they used to make him do. So they were trying to get their team videos out so quick that they'd make him do like interviews, pre-race, but as if it's post-race. So no shit. So he had to be like, yeah, I think I rode really well in the last few stages, and I'm really happy with it. But like, he'd have to just give these like broad statements,
Well,
yeah. So like, if he won the event, it'd be like a video of him going, "Yeah, I'm pretty happy with how the bike performed." Like, how shit is that?
Yeah, I mean,
imagine being made to do that.
We have before now done different, like, so Rick McLaughlin, the presenter, we'll have done different versions of his, like, so thanks for watching, it was a good race, where Richie took the crown, and if it was between Richie and Jack, we'll do another one where he can say Jack. But that's because logistically we have to do all the links with Rick to camera before the end of the race, because at the end of the race he's in the press room recording voiceover and stuff that you can't do ahead of time, like really in-depth stuff on stage times and stuff. So, but anything where there's going to be real excitement or you want a reaction or something, you can't do that. You can't interview someone after the race. You're going to get such a wooden performance. But
dude, imagine it.
It's so good that you can be like the master of your own destiny, and you can just say, "Yep, I won." But
Stoke with the win.
You're sort of manifesting it, aren't you? Really, you're just manifesting the whole thing.
They're just like, all right, Ollie, yeah, we like the positivity, and we like that you've done the Stoke with the win video. Can we do sort of like a mid-pack video now? Can we do a mid-pack reaction?
Place video.
Yeah, exactly. Can we do a puncture video now? Maybe puncture. What about a huge crash video? Can we do one
the DNQ stuff. Can we do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You should race an EWS sometime, Ollie. I reckon you'd be woefully too unfit, but I think the skills-wise, you'd be all right. You'd get down the track.
I'd be too unfit? You actually think I'd be too unfit? Yeah.
Massively.
Wow, that's so impressive. Yeah.
This is where
they are mega impressive.
I was going to say, you talk to people like Richie Rude and Jack Moyer and Jesse Melamed, and even they aren't fit enough to win every race. There's people fitter than them. And
I'd love to do one, personally as well. I really would like to go and do one.
I'm reasonably decent on a bike and reasonably fit normally, having some kind of health bits and bobs this year, but normally fairly fit. I could not finish most EWSs. The days are massive.
Yeah, really, yeah.
Like, I'd get down all the tracks absolutely fine. It's just the timed liaisons to get back to the top are fairly tight. You've got to push to do them. That's the main difference between the main pro race and the 50 and 100 that they've started doing, is that in the pro race, the uphills, you've got quite a tight window of time to get back to the top. And in the others, you don't.
Yeah, and there's a time penalty if you don't make it, isn't there?
Yeah.
Really,
and the time penalty's like, it's not a second or two, you're talking tens of seconds. So it's like, if you miss it, your kind of day could be over. So, yeah, you see some people properly blowing at the top. Yeah,
Joe was telling me about that. Like, you take your your cheek guards out on some full face helmets, and he's got to the top before, and they're calling his number, so he's literally had to just drop in with his cheek pads tucked behind his goggles. Yeah, and his goggles aren't even on his face, and all that sort of shit. I heard as well, Jack Moyer's trainer is Fabian Burrell, or something, maybe just coach.
He's the coach, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That's tough. But he has to upload everything he does. So there's no escaping. Like, that sounds hellish, dude.
Yeah.
That kind of training where you just, it's just numbers. You're just sending out numbers.
No days off.
This is what I've done today.
After the Scottish EWS season ender just gone, I did a big kind of hour or so long in-depth interview with Jack for Canyon, and super interesting chatting to him and getting some proper in-depth stuff. But he's going, I think, next year 100% EWS again. If it starts, I think with him, because he dabbles in both downhill and EWS, if his season's going well at one, he'll stick to that. And if he crashes out at an EWS and has no chance of the overall, then he'll dabble in both. But he says to be top of the game at one of them, it's 100% focus the whole time.
So it'd be fascinating to speak to someone, one of these characters who've done both, to compare kind of training and stuff, because I guess the EWS is a lot of bike time, and I wonder about riding wise. You'll be able to say, but when I see people ride an EWS stage, it's not, the stage is so gnarly, and there's just this sort of, a lot of them are so long, and there's this kind of consistent 80% feel about how people. That's realistically way off. It's not 80%, but reining it in and trying to be smooth and carry speed over a downhill run that just looks out and out like.
Yeah. I mean, there's certain racers that are really fast and will take stage wins, but they are terrible at managing a bike through a race, and so they quite often crash or have mechanicals. And sure, you're not pushing as 100% as you would maybe at a downhill World Cup, but you're going 98% these days. The boys have to push fairly hard at the sharp end. They're not chilling anymore. So it's pretty wild. And to do that over, some of the runs are 10 kilometers long. You're talking 20 minutes in one run at full tilt. That's absolutely mind blowing.
With little punchy climbs. And, actually, a lot of the tracks look as a World Cup downhill track is gnarly, yes, but it's gnarly at the pace they're going at it.
Yeah.
Whereas actually a lot of the EWS tracks, I don't know, you probably know more than me, but actually some of the tracks look gnarly. Like they look difficult to ride.
Some of them are absolutely heinous. Yeah, they're super gnarly and technical. And because a lot of them are more footpath kind of, they're quite often in the Alps, they're adapted footpaths. And so they're just gnarly at any speed. The faster you go, the more death they get. But trying to ride them slowly is equally horrible, especially on a borrowed rental bike with a massive camera bag doing 1 mile an hour.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that must be gnarly. Is there a point, Jacob, just to go back a tiny bit, when did this become a job for you? Like, what was that initial point where you went, okay, there's a career here? And did you have a job before doing this?
I mean, I, like most people, paper around working in some kitchens, washing pots, did a short stint in co-op on the tills, but all of that's at the age of like 16, 17, and from 17 onwards, no, it's just been this. It was a case of just slowly getting more and more work come in. Initially, it was just getting 50 quid here to go and get some shots of our elite riders after I'd finished my race run at a Southwest Regional. And then you think, well, if they're going to pay me 50 quid to do that, I only need to do, 2 or 3 of these a month, and I'm getting the same as I am washing pots. And then, that just naturally snowballs and grows. And you end up then, I think, at the age of 17, got my first proper commercial day shoot for Asterix or Bergamont bikes way back when. Right. And I mean, at the age of that, when you're getting 200 quid or whatever it would have been to go and shoot photos for a day, which I would have done for free because it's what I love to do, you start to question whether or not this is something you should probably do more of. Yeah,
but obviously all that takes investment as well, because the more advanced you get, the more advanced your equipment has to get.
Yeah.
It's like running any business, I guess, right? You're just constantly updating your equipment.
Yeah, massively. Well, lenses tend to last a good amount of time, but camera bodies and that kind of stuff last 3-4 years before they need replacing. And obviously, at the very start, where you don't have any kit, every bit of money that you earn is just getting ploughed straight back into buying more kit to enable you to up your game or try new things, which is a thing which is infinitely easier if you, like me, were still living at home without any kind of real outgoings. That if you're trying to do that at the same time as having a house or kids or whatever, or a proper job that needs to be matched money before you can switch, just gets a whole lot more complicated. So
here's a good question, right? How long in the trenches before you feel like you were worth money? Do you know what I mean? So, how long before you felt like, yeah, actually you should pay me to take these photos and I should be paid for this video?
2 or 3 years of doing it fairly regularly. The first couple of years, it's just total imposter syndrome. You have to get paid because you know that that's the only way to make it sustainable, and not to undercut people who are already established. But you also just feel like a total imposter taking people's money, or like, surely the work I'm doing isn't good enough to actually get paid for. But then, clients are always happy. You get asked back to do more work. You look at the work and you're happy. So you do get over it
on a billboard or on an ad.
Yeah, it takes time, but it's still there to some degree. Obviously, if massive, like Disney wanted me to do a massive global ad campaign or something, I'd be massive imposter syndrome quoting for it. I'd do it, and you'd go and do the work, and I'm sure if you put the work in and planned it all, you'd do a good job. But yeah, for sure.
We transfer the file over like...
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, that whole like imposter syndrome, though, isn't it? I think especially when it's such a sort of like a hobby as well. You almost feel, I've done this, you feel bad when you're invoicing companies and you're just like, as if I'm doing this. But it is, like you say, there's still mortgages to pay. There's still things that need to be done.
You must have had it riding as well, Ol. You must have been on shoots back in the day and thought, why the hell am I the guy here?
Mate, still, the whole time. The whole fucking time. Because you're just like, ultimately, I guess probably a big part of why I'm actually marketable is actually because I really, really do love doing it. I really do enjoy it. So then naturally, if you really enjoy doing it, you're like, come on, you can't be like, what, you want to film me doing it again, yeah? Because that was super fun. Like, hitting that turn was super fun. Do you want, like, especially when you're like, spray me in the face with mud. Like, that to me is like, dude, I would actually, I tell you what, I'd pay. I'd probably not only do
not doubt it.
If that was a fairground ride and there was just like a perfect turn and then your face behind the perfect turn.
That's the happiest I've seen you in a long time. is old jacked up on ankle injections, smashing me in the face with swamp water.
Mate, life is good. I was saying to Joel, actually, we were with Joel Anderson. We were shooting with Joel Anderson, who also rides for Goodyear. I was like, fuck, dude, this is like, I'm not thinking about my ankle because of these roids. I'm at like this. Our listeners have heard me talk about it before, so it's relevant. But like, it is incredible. I can ride without thinking. I can go completely buck nutty and out of control, and it's okay. I can react. I don't have to like think about it. It's so good. So yeah, I'd pay money to put dirt in your face.
Just to go back on that, Ollie, because I think it's super interesting. Like, is there when you mentioned the term imposter syndrome, is there one thing that stands out to you of like, I can't believe I was there doing that?
Oh, dude, the whole fucking time it's all ridiculous because all the, confidence is in my own abilities riding, and then there's an element of bravado with anyone because you got to, haven't you? If you're going to send a massive jump, someone else has done it, so you're going to be like, if he can do it, I can do it, whatever. That's real. But then when it comes to like, dude, anything, I can be in Whistler, a dude in front of me has all the new TLD kit. I'm like, shit, let's let him go first. No shit. I ride for Troy Lee Designs. He's got the new kit, and I'll just be like, oh, this motherfucker is fucking, he means
serious.
it. Yeah, I'm just going to be cruising down doing whips and stuff. I don't want to drop in front of him. It happens all the time. Like, not being a dick, but largely, you drop in behind him and you're like, fucking Jesus, he's slow. But
that's a problem you have, not me.
No, but I think so massively. I reckon it's quite amplified if you're, I know we're talking about you, Jacob, but actually it's quite amplified if you're a rider, and people don't think about that. They want to be sponsored, but you want to be sponsored until it comes down to even just doing, I know like ad campaigns and edits and shit are here today, gone tomorrow. But when you're behind, when you've got a camera pointed at you and doing something over and over again, like, fuck, it'd be, if you thought you wanted it and then you get there and you're like, whoa, I feel really bad. I feel real self-conscious. I don't know. I've been doing it for years, but I definitely reckon it's gnarly as a rider for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's important as well to always like break it down to what your job actually is, which is to sell product. Like that's what you're there for, right? Is to show off the product and sell the product. And that is, I think when you boil it down to that, that's pressure in itself, right? So you're asked to sell product for Troy Lee Designs and Focus and stuff like that, which means that you have got to show up. You have got to be professional. You have got to be marketable,
On that Focus video that you did a while back with Deeks, the like downhill jump track that never ends, send me a huge backflip for that. Like, I know for a fact that will have just been fairly terrifying. And
horrible, yeah.
Like, it's a big old jump to flip.
Yeah, really horrible. That's when
with an 8
that's the job.
You.
But then Bren always says this. Bren's really good at this. He says, look, if it's fun 50% of the time, then you're doing, like, I would say it's fun 90% of the time for me personally. So I'm lucky. I've worked it out in that respect. But he says if it's fun 50% of the time, then you're doing better than if you were, another version. If there was another version of myself in a job that I was unhappy in, like, I'm still doing better. I think the fine line, I think, is that where it involves biking, you run the risk of ruining it. I don't know if you've ever found that filming. Like, do you sometimes wish, I don't know, go and do a wedding or something where it's just money? You don't even mix riding.
Well,
I don't get that from you, but
there's certain jobs which you do because they pay well or whatever, but generally I try to do jobs that I not only want to do but also pay. And sometimes I shoot weddings, and sometimes it's commercial stuff or corporate headshots or whatever. And I really enjoy the fact that I do get to do a bit of everything, but mostly cycling. If you just shot all the same thing, no matter what it is, as a creative, that's going to get slightly boring. It's all about trying new stuff and pushing yourself creatively and learning new stuff all the time. So do a bit of everything. Super fortunate that most of the time it's biking, but
I've got a good question. I didn't write it down, but it would have been one that I'd write down. If you could tell a young Jacob Gibbons, a young baseman, you know, like the baseman, what's it finger, kind of just like on the dark web, doing creepy shit in the basement. If you could tell him, if you could give him some advice, what would it be in regards to your, in regards to your career as a media mogul?